Greetings and salutations. Welcome to Black Magic. We are thrilled to present today's story. What if Harry discovered the mirror of Erised at age 5 and it showed him exactly how to resurrect his parents? If these stories bring joy to your day, please consider liking and subscribing. Every bit of support helps us continue this passion project. Now, prepare yourself for an amazing tale. Chapter 1, The Boy and the Mirror. 5-year-old Harry Potter ran as fast as his skinny legs could carry him, ducking through the hole in the fence that separated Magnolia Crescent from the abandoned construction site. His two large shoes flopped awkwardly with each step, but he didn't slow down until he was certain Dudley and his friends had given up the chase. "Stupid Harry hunting," he muttered, pushing his taped-up glasses back onto his nose. His cousin's latest game had become increasingly rough over the past few weeks. Today, they'd cornered him behind the school bins, and Harry had only escaped when his panic somehow caused all the trash can lids to clatter to the ground at once, startling Dudley's gang long enough for Harry to slip away. Weird stuff like that happened around Harry sometimes. Uncle Vernon called it freakishness and would turn that alarming shade of purple whenever anything unexplainable occurred. The punishment was always the same: the cupboard under the stairs, no meals, and endless chores. Once he was finally released, Harry wandered deeper into the abandoned construction site. Work had stopped months ago when the company went bankrupt, leaving behind half-finished structures and piles of building materials. The place had become Harry's sanctuary, somewhere the Dursleys never thought to look for him. Rain started to fall, light at first but quickly picking up intensity. Harry sprinted toward the largest of the unfinished buildings, a 3-story structure that had walls and a partial roof. He squeezed through a gap between 2 plywood sheets and found himself in what would have eventually become a lobby. "At least it's dry," Harry said to himself, wringing water from his oversized shirt. The building was darker than he remembered. Previous explorations had revealed little besides concrete floors, exposed beams, and the occasional forgotten tool. But today, something caught his eye, a faint silvery glow coming from what would have been a back hallway. Harry approached cautiously. "Hello? Is someone there?" No answer came, but the glow seemed to pulse slightly, as if responding to his voice. Harry's curiosity overpowered his caution. Following the light, he found himself in a small room he'd never noticed before. And there, leaning against the far wall, stood something that definitely hadn't been there during his previous visits. A mirror. Taller than any adult Harry had ever seen, with an ornate gold frame that seemed to twist and curl like vines. Strange symbols carved along the top arch were illuminated by that silvery light, which seemed to emanate from the glass itself. Harry approached slowly, drawn by an inexplicable feeling that the mirror had been waiting for him. As he stepped in front of it, he expected to see his reflection: skinny, messy black hair, broken glasses, Dudley's hand-me-downs hanging off his small frame. Instead, he gasped. In the mirror stood 2 adults, a man and a woman. The man looked startlingly like Harry himself, the same untidy black hair, similar facial features, though he was tall and strong-looking. The woman had brilliant green eyes, Harry's eyes, and deep red hair that framed a kind face. "Who?" Harry's voice caught in his throat. The woman in the mirror smiled and knelt down, as if to be at eye level with him. She mouthed something, but no sound came out. The man put his hand on her shoulder, smiling too. "I don't understand," Harry whispered. He reached out tentatively to touch the glass. It felt cold under his fingertips, but as he made contact, a whisper filled the empty room: "Erised stra eru oit uba kafru oit on wosi." Harry jumped back, looking around for the source of the voice. Finding no one, he turned back to the mirror. The people, the man and woman, were still there, still smiling at him. Something about their faces, especially their eyes. Are you my parents?" Harry asked, his voice small. The figures nodded, and Harry's heart felt like it might burst out of his chest. He'd never seen pictures of his parents. Aunt Petunia refused to speak of her sister, and the few times Harry had asked questions about how his parents died, he'd been told they were worthless drunks who crashed their car. But these people didn't look like drunks. They looked magical. Mom. Dad. Harry pressed both hands against the glass now, tears streaming down his face. As if in response, the mirror's surface began to ripple like water. The image changed. His parents were still there, but they were doing something now. His father was drawing something on the ground with what looked like a stick that emitted light from its tip. His mother was gathering objects, placing them in specific positions within the drawing. Harry watched, transfixed, as they performed what appeared to be some kind of ritual. They moved with purpose, placing strange ingredients in particular patterns. Plants he'd never seen, liquids in crystal vials, objects that glowed and pulsed with that same silvery light. And then, the whisper came again, louder this time, "I can show you how to bring them back." Harry's breath caught. Bring them back? You mean, alive again? The mirror pulsed once with light, which Harry somehow understood as, yes. How? Harry whispered, pressing closer to the glass. Please, tell me how. The image in the mirror shifted again, showing the ritual in greater detail. Harry saw symbols drawn in specific patterns, ingredients measured precisely, movements performed in exact sequences. It was complex, far too complex for a 5-year-old to fully understand, but Harry felt knowledge flowing into him as he watched, as if the mirror was imprinting these instructions directly into his mind. I need to remember all this, Harry muttered to himself, looking around frantically. He spotted some construction paper and a box of crayons left behind by workers or perhaps other children who had used this place as a hideout. Without taking his eyes off the mirror for longer than necessary, Harry grabbed the supplies and began to draw what he saw. His small hands worked feverishly, copying symbols, sketching ingredients, noting the steps of the ritual as best he could with his limited vocabulary and art skills. Hours passed, though Harry barely noticed. The rain outside had stopped and started again, but he remained focused on his task, documenting everything the mirror showed him. When he ran out of paper, he used the backs of sheets. When one crayon broke, he grabbed another. I need to know what these things are called, Harry said, pointing to a strange-looking plant in the mirror. To his surprise, words appeared at the bottom of the frame, asphodel. Asphodel, Harry repeated, sounding out the word carefully as he wrote it down in his childish scrawl. This continued as the mirror labeled each ingredient, each step, each incantation. Some words were too difficult for Harry to spell, but he did his best, drawing pictures beside the words to help himself remember. The light outside had dimmed considerably when Harry finally sat back, surrounded by dozens of crayon-covered pages. His hand ached, his stomach growled from hunger, but his eyes shone with purpose. I'll bring you back, he promised the figures in the mirror, who had returned to simply standing and smiling at him. I just need to learn more. I need to get these things. As if responding to his determination, the mirror's surface rippled again, and Harry saw himself, older, wearing strange robes, holding one of those light-emitting sticks. This older Harry was performing the ritual, confidently gathering the ingredients, drawing the symbols with precision. Patience, the whisper came. In time, you will have the power. What power? When? Harry asked eagerly. Magic, young one. The power of magic. Harry's eyes widened. Magic isn't real. Uncle Vernon says, the mirror pulsed with a sudden intensity that made Harry step back. The whisper came again, sharper this time, your uncle lies. You have magic in your blood. Your parents had it too. Why do you think strange things happen around you? Harry thought about the trash can lids earlier that day, and countless other inexplicable incidents, ending up on the school roof when running from Dudley, his hair growing back overnight after Aunt Petunia cut it horribly, a teacher's wig turning blue when she'd been particularly mean to him. That's magic. I'm doing magic. Untrained, wild magic. But yes. And you will learn to control it, to use it. To bring them back. Harry looked at his parents in the mirror, their faces so kind, so loving, everything the Dursleys were not. The thought of having them back, real and solid, able to take him away from Privet Drive forever, it was overwhelming. "I'll do anything," Harry promised. "Then learn. Watch. Remember." The mirror began showing him simple exercises, ways to focus his magic. It instructed him to hold out his hand and concentrate on feeling a tingling sensation in his fingertips. Harry followed along, closing his eyes, focusing with all his might. At first, nothing happened. But after several minutes of intense concentration, Harry felt it, a warm, buzzing feeling spreading from his chest down to his fingers. When he opened his eyes, tiny sparks danced across his palm. "I did it," he gasped, both terrified and exhilarated. The sparks vanished as his concentration broke, but the memory of them, the feeling of that power flowing through him, remained. Harry tried again, and again, until he could reliably produce those small sparks. "What else can I do?" he asked eagerly. The mirror showed him another exercise, focusing on an object and trying to move it with his mind. Harry spotted a small stone on the ground and concentrated on it, trying to channel that same tingling energy toward the pebble. For a long time, nothing happened. Harry's forehead beaded with sweat, his small body trembling with effort. Just as he was about to give up, the stone quivered and rolled an inch to the left. "Did you see that?" Harry exclaimed to the mirror. "I moved it." The figures of his parents applauded silently, their faces glowing with pride. Harry had never seen anyone look at him that way before. It filled him with a warmth he couldn't describe. He practiced for hours more, moving the stone farther distances, then trying with other small objects, a nail, a wood chip, a broken crayon. Each success built upon the last, and by the time exhaustion finally overtook him, Harry could reliably move small objects several feet across the concrete floor. The whisper came one last time as Harry's eyes began to droop, "Return tomorrow. There is more to learn." Harry nodded sleepily. "I promise." He gathered his crayon drawings, folding them carefully and tucking them inside his oversized shirt. With one last look at his parents, Harry reluctantly left the building, knowing the Dursleys would be furious about his long absence. As expected, Uncle Vernon was waiting when Harry slipped back into number 4, Privet Drive. "Where have you been, boy?" Vernon demanded, his mustache quivering with rage. "Got lost," Harry lied, eyes downcast to hide the defiance he suddenly felt. These people weren't his real family. His real family was coming back to him, someday. Lost? Lost? In a neighborhood you've lived in your entire miserable life. Vernon grabbed Harry's arm, squeezing painfully. "Do you know what time it is? Your aunt had to serve dinner without you, which means you've wasted food." "I'm sorry, Uncle Vernon," Harry said automatically, though he didn't feel sorry at all. "Cupboard. Now. No meals until tomorrow night." Harry didn't argue as Vernon shoved him toward the cupboard under the stairs. Once the door slammed shut and the lock clicked into place, Harry pulled out a small penlight he'd found in the schoolyard months ago and hidden in a crack between his mattress and the wall. By its weak glow, he spread out his drawings, reviewing what he'd learned. The ritual was incredibly complex, ingredients he'd never heard of, symbols he couldn't read, incantations in a language he didn't recognize. But the mirror had assured him he would gain the knowledge and power necessary. "I just need to be patient," Harry whispered to himself. "And keep practicing." He set aside the ritual drawings and closed his eyes, concentrating on summoning that tingling feeling again. In the darkness of his cupboard, Harry's palm glowed with small, dancing lights. The next day at school, Harry could barely focus on his lessons. His mind kept returning to the mirror, to his parents, to the magic he'd discovered within himself. During lunch, he sat alone as usual, but instead of eating, he stared intently at his milk carton, trying to move it without touching it. After several minutes of concentration, the carton slid half an inch across the table. A thrill ran through Harry, but he quickly looked around to make sure no one had noticed. As soon as the final bell rang, Harry raced toward the abandoned construction site, ignoring Dudley's shouts behind him. He squeezed through the hole in the fence and ran straight to the building where he'd found the mirror. It was waiting for him, gleaming in the late afternoon light. His parents appeared immediately, smiling in welcome. "I've been practicing," Harry told them excitedly. "Look." He concentrated on a nail lying on the floor, and after a few seconds of intense focus, it rose shakily into the air, hovering about 6 inches above the ground. The figures in the mirror applauded, and Harry beamed with pride. "You learn quickly," the whisper came. "Now try something new. Feel the magic inside you, and instead of pushing it outward, wrap it around yourself. Imagine becoming unseen." Harry frowned in concentration. "Invisible? Really? Try." Harry closed his eyes, focusing on the tingling energy that now came more easily to him. Instead of directing it toward an object, he visualized it surrounding his body, like a blanket made of light. He felt a strange sensation, as if cool water was trickling down from the top of his head. When he opened his eyes and looked down, his body appeared slightly transparent, not fully invisible, but blurred, as if he were seeing himself through frosted glass. "Whoa!" Harry gasped, and immediately his body returned to normal, the concentration broken by his excitement. "With practice, you will master it completely," the whisper assured him. "This will be useful for gathering what you need." "For the ritual? To bring you back?" "Yes. Some of the ingredients are closely guarded." Harry nodded seriously. "I'll practice every day. I promise." The mirror showed him more exercises, more ways to focus and direct his magic. Harry worked tirelessly, repeating each task until he could perform it reasonably well before moving to the next. By the time darkness fell, Harry had learned to levitate heavier objects, to make himself partially invisible for nearly a minute, and to create small lights that floated above his palm. "This is brilliant," Harry said, watching the lights dance between his fingers. "I wish I could stay here forever." "You cannot," the whisper replied. "But take this." The mirror's surface rippled, and something small and silver emerged from the glass, falling to the floor with a soft clink. Harry picked it up, a small pendant, shaped like the mirror itself in miniature. "Keep this close. It will help you remember what you've learned, and allow me to guide you when we're apart." Harry slipped the pendant over his head, tucking it beneath his shirt. It felt cool against his skin. "Thank you." As he gathered his things to leave, Harry noticed a sign posted on one of the exterior walls that he hadn't seen before. Squinting at it in the fading light, he made out the words, "Demolition scheduled, property to be cleared starting Monday." Today was Friday. No. Harry turned back to the mirror in panic. "They're going to destroy this building. What do I do?" The mirror remained calm, its surface rippling gently. "Do not fear. I will find you again, when the time is right. But how will I keep learning? How will I see my parents? Touch the pendant when you wish to practice. As for seeing us again. Patience, young one. We will be reunited." Harry clutched the pendant through his shirt. "Promise?" "We promise." The whisper seemed to come from both the mirror and the figures of his parents this time. "Now go. Remember what you've learned. Keep your drawings safe. And most importantly, keep practicing." Harry nodded, gathering his papers and taking one last, long look at his parents. "I'll bring you back," he vowed. "No matter how long it takes." As he turned to leave, the mirror pulsed with light one final time, and Harry heard the whisper follow him out, "We'll be waiting." Over the weekend, Harry returned to the construction site, but found it already cordoned off with new fencing and warning signs. Security guards patrolled the perimeter, making it impossible for him to reach the building where the mirror was hidden. By Monday morning, the demolition had begun. From the fence of his school playground, Harry could see the wrecking balls and bulldozers tearing down the structures. His heart ached as he watched the building that had housed the mirror collapse into rubble. But the pendant remained cool against his chest, a constant reminder that what he'd experienced was real. Each night in his cupboard, Harry practiced the skills the mirror had taught him. He became more adept at levitation, moving his few possessions around in the darkness. His attempts at invisibility improved until he could make his hand completely disappear for several seconds. The Dursleys noticed changes in him, though they couldn't pinpoint what was different. Harry seemed more confident, less affected by their cruelty. When Dudley pushed him down, Harry no longer cried. When Uncle Vernon shouted, Harry maintained eye contact just a little longer than was comfortable. When Aunt Petunia piled on extra chores, Harry completed them efficiently and without complaint, as if his mind were elsewhere. "The boy's up to something," Vernon muttered to Petunia one evening, watching Harry methodically washing dishes while staring intently at each plate as if it were the most fascinating thing in the world. What Vernon couldn't see was that Harry was practicing, focusing his magic to remove stains without scrubbing. The plates came clean with barely a touch, though Harry still went through the motions of washing to avoid suspicion. Months passed. Then years. Harry continued practicing in secret, guided by occasional whispers from the pendant when he focused his thoughts on it. His powers grew stronger, more controlled. Small objects now flew to his hand with a mere thought. He could turn himself nearly invisible for up to 5 minutes. Once, when Dudley and his gang cornered him, Harry had managed to create a gust of wind strong enough to knock them all down, giving him time to escape. His drawings of the ritual remained hidden beneath a loose floorboard in his cupboard, taken out only late at night when Harry was certain the Dursleys were asleep. He studied them religiously, memorizing every detail, even as some of the crayon markings began to fade with time. Harry grew taller, though he remained small for his age due to the Dursleys' neglect. When he turned 7, he was finally moved from the cupboard to Dudley's second bedroom, after a mysterious incident in which all the locks on the cupboard door repeatedly unlocked themselves no matter how many times Vernon replaced them. The extra space allowed Harry to practice more freely, though he remained cautious, always alert for footsteps on the stairs. He never saw the mirror again, but he never stopped looking for it either, checking every new construction site, every abandoned building he came across during his solitary wanderings. Life continued in this way until the summer of Harry's 11th year. He'd grown into a quiet, watchful boy with an intensity that unnerved most adults and kept other children at a distance. The Dursleys still treated him with contempt, but with a growing undercurrent of unease, particularly after inexplicable incidents that seemed to coincide with moments when Harry was angry or frightened. It was a typical July morning when everything changed. Harry was cooking breakfast, subtly using his abilities to ensure nothing burned while appearing to barely pay attention to the task. "Get the mail, Dudley," said Uncle Vernon from behind his newspaper. "Make Harry get it." "Get the mail, Harry. Make Dudley get it. Poke him with your smelting stick, Dudley." Harry dodged the stick and went to get the mail. 3 things lay on the doormat: a postcard from Uncle Vernon's sister Marge, a brown envelope that looked like a bill, and a letter for Harry. Harry picked it up, staring at it in wonder. No one had ever written to him before. Yet here it was, addressed plainly, Mr. H. Potter, the smallest bedroom 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. The envelope was thick and heavy, made of yellowish parchment, and the address was written in emerald green ink. There was no stamp. Turning the envelope over with trembling fingers, Harry saw a purple wax seal bearing a coat of arms, a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake surrounding a large letter H. Something stirred in his memory, the pendant against his chest seemed to warm slightly. He'd seen that symbol before, in one of the mirror's visions of the older version of himself. "Hurry up, boy," shouted Uncle Vernon from the kitchen. "What are you doing, checking for letter bombs?" Vernon chuckled at his own joke. Harry quickly tucked the letter inside his oversized shirt, next to the pendant, and returned to the kitchen with the other mail. Bills, and a card from Marge," he reported, handing them over while keeping his own letter hidden. That night, safely locked in his bedroom, Harry carefully opened the letter and read, "Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry Headmaster, Albus Dumbledore, Order of Merlin, First Class, Grand Source, CHF, Warlock, Supreme Mugwump, International Confeed, of Wizards, Dear Mr. Potter, we are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Please find enclosed a list of all necessary books and equipment. Term begins on September 1st. We await your owl by no later than July 31st. Yours sincerely, Minerva McGonagall. Deputy Headmistress. Harry's heart pounded in his chest. A school of magic. This was it, the path to gaining the knowledge and power he needed. The mirror had been right all along. He grasped the pendant, focusing his thoughts. Did you know about this? Is this where I'll learn what I need? For the first time in years, the whisper came clearly, yes. This is the beginning. At Hogwarts, you'll find what you seek. The first steps toward bringing us back. Harry smiled, a rare expression on his face. He carefully folded the letter and placed it with his ritual drawings beneath the loose floorboard. I'm coming, Mum and Dad, he whispered into the darkness. I'm finally on my way. The pendant pulsed once with warmth, and Harry could almost see his parents' faces smiling at him, just as they had in the mirror all those years ago. As he drifted off to sleep, Harry's mind filled with visions of what awaited him, magic to learn, ingredients to gather, a ritual to perfect. His path was clear now, illuminated by the promise he'd made to the mirror and to himself. He would bring them back. No matter what it took. Chapter 2, Secrets of Hogwarts. The massive scarlet steam engine belched clouds of vapor as Harry pushed his trolley along platform 9 3/4. The whole scene buzzed with energy, students shouting to friends, parents giving last-minute instructions, owls screeching in their cages. Harry took it all in with calculating eyes. His journey to this moment had been chaotic but illuminating. The giant called Hagrid had rescued him from the Dursleys' desperate attempts to prevent him from receiving his Hogwarts letter. Hagrid had introduced Harry to the wizarding world, taken him shopping in Diagon Alley, and explained about Voldemort killing his parents. What Hagrid didn't know was that Harry already understood more than he let on. The pendant hidden beneath his new robes had whispered guidance throughout their shopping trip, directing Harry toward specific books beyond his first-year requirements. Find an empty compartment, Harry muttered to himself, lifting his trunk onto the train. Need to review the plans. He found one at the far end of the train and quickly settled in. After ensuring no one would disturb him, Harry pulled out a worn leather notebook, a significant upgrade from his childhood crayon drawings. Inside were meticulously copied ritual instructions, ingredient lists, and notes he'd added over the years. Harry ran his finger down the list. Magical education, in progress. Wand, acquired. His hand drifted to the holly and phoenix feather wand in his pocket. Mr. Ollivander had called it the brother to Voldemort's wand, which had momentarily shaken Harry's composure. The pendant had warmed against his skin. Significant. Keep this connection hidden. The compartment door slid open, interrupting Harry's thoughts. A tall, red-headed boy stood awkwardly in the doorway. Anyone sitting there? He asked, pointing to the seat opposite Harry. Everywhere else is full. Harry quickly closed his notebook and shoved it into his pocket. No, go ahead. The boy sat down, introduced himself as Ron Weasley, and soon they were talking about Hogwarts, wizard families, and Quidditch. Harry responded with careful enthusiasm, revealing just enough of his ignorance to seem normal but asking targeted questions about magical abilities and rare magical substances. The pendant remained cool against his skin. This boy wasn't immediately useful to his plans, but forming connections was necessary for blending in. Their conversation was interrupted when a round-faced boy and a bushy-haired girl appeared looking for a lost toad. The girl, Hermione Granger, spoke rapidly about spells she'd already learned and houses she might be sorted into. I've been practicing too, Harry said, perking up at the mention of transfiguration. According to his notes, transformation magic was central to the resurrection ritual. Really? Can you show us something? Hermione asked eagerly. Harry hesitated. The pendant warmed slightly against his chest, a warning. He couldn't reveal too much of his abilities. Nothing impressive yet, he lied. Just making feathers float and stuff. Ron seemed relieved that Harry wasn't showing off, but Hermione looked disappointed. After she left, Ron complained about her know-it-all attitude. She might be useful though, Harry said without thinking. Useful? What you mean? Harry recovered quickly. For study groups and stuff. If she knows that much already. The countryside flying past the window grew wilder as the train moved north. Harry occasionally checked his notebook when Ron wasn't looking, reviewing the ritual components he needed to find at Hogwarts. According to the mirror's instructions, 3 key ingredients were likely at the school: a substance with transformative properties, something from a creature of immortality, and an anchor object with powerful protective enchantments. When they arrived at Hogsmeade Station, Hagrid led the first years across the lake. Harry's first glimpse of Hogwarts sent a surge of anticipation through him. Somewhere in that castle were the things he needed. The sorting ceremony presented an unexpected challenge. When Professor McGonagall placed the ancient hat on Harry's head, a small voice spoke in his ear. Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and a thirst to prove yourself. But what's this? An obsession burning bright, a dangerous path you walk, young Potter. Harry gripped the edges of the stool. Don't reveal my plans. Your secrets are safe with me, the hat assured him. Though I wonder if you understand what you're truly seeking. The mirror shows not truth but, I know what I'm doing, Harry interrupted fiercely. Do you? Well, where to put you? Such ambition would suit Slytherin well. No, Harry thought desperately. He needed to be somewhere less suspicious, somewhere he could move freely. Not Slytherin, eh? Your reasoning is concerning. Yet there's more to you than this obsession, whether you see it or not. Perhaps what you need is Gryffindor. The hat shouted the last word to the hall. Relief flooded Harry as he removed it and headed toward the cheering Gryffindor table. The pendant stayed cool. This was acceptable. Classes began the next day, and Harry attacked his studies with an intensity that surprised his teachers. In Transfiguration, he was the first to transform his match into a needle, earning a rare smile from Professor McGonagall. In Charms, his feather levitated so quickly that Professor Flitwick fell off his stack of books in surprise. Only Snape seemed unimpressed, sneering at Harry during potions and asking impossible questions. Harry endured the man's obvious dislike with quiet determination. Potions would be crucial for the ritual, and he couldn't afford to antagonize the professor too openly. The whispering began after the first week. Students noticed how Harry stayed in the library until closing, how he asked unusual questions in class, how his spellwork seemed almost too precise for a first year. Ron often complained about Harry's study habits, but Harry maintained enough time for normal activities to avoid drawing too much attention. One evening in late September, Harry slipped away from his dormitory after curfew. The invisibility cloak he'd received anonymously for Christmas made these nighttime explorations possible. According to the pendant's guidance, he needed to map the castle thoroughly to locate potential ritual components. Tonight he was investigating the third-floor corridor, the forbidden one Dumbledore had mentioned at the start of term feast. The pendant had grown increasingly warm whenever Harry thought about that corridor. Alohomora, he whispered, pointing his wand at the locked door. It swung open to reveal an enormous three-headed dog, all 3 sets of eyes snapping open at the disturbance. Harry jumped back, heart racing, but something caught his eye before he slammed the door shut, a trapdoor beneath the creature's paws. Back in the safety of his dormitory, Harry consulted his notebook. Guardian beast, he muttered, adding the information. Protecting something underground. The pendant warned. Important. Find what lies beneath. Over the next few weeks, Harry divided his time between regular classes, research in the library, and building connections with key students. Ron became a constant companion, useful as camouflage if nothing else. But it was Hermione who proved unexpectedly valuable after Harry saved her from a troll on Halloween. The three became friends, though Harry's motivations remained hidden. Hermione's encyclopedic knowledge helped him identify potential ritual components, while her strict adherence to rules made her trust in him a perfect cover for his nighttime wanderings. During one such excursion in December, Harry discovered an empty classroom containing nothing but an ornate mirror. The moment he saw it, his pendant burned hot against his skin. "It's you," Harry whispered, approaching the familiar golden frame. "The mirror of Erised." The surface rippled at his words, and his parents appeared just as they had 6 years ago. But they weren't alone. Behind them stood shadowy figures, indistinct but numerous. "We are waiting," came the whisper, directly into his mind rather than in the room. "You're making progress." "I still don't have the key components," Harry said, frustrated. "I've been searching for months." "Look closer at what the mirror shows you now." Harry peered into the depths of the glass. Behind his parents, one of the shadowy figures held something small and red, glowing with inner light. "What is that?" "The Philosopher's Stone. The first component you seek. It lies beneath the trapdoor, guarded by trials and tests." Harry's eyes widened. "The Philosopher's Stone? But that's a powerful transformative agent. Exactly what the ritual requires." The next day, Harry raced to the library and pulled every book he could find on Nicholas Flamel and the Philosopher's Stone. He learned of its powers to transform metals into gold and produce the elixir of life. The resurrection ritual would need such powerful transformative magic. Harry shared just enough of his research with Ron and Hermione to keep them interested, suggesting that someone might be trying to steal the stone for its wealth and immortality properties. He never mentioned his own plans for it. The pendant guided his preparations throughout the winter and spring. Harry excelled in his classes not just to avoid suspicion but because every spell, every potion technique brought him closer to the abilities he'd need. He practiced advanced magic in secret, pushing himself beyond first-year levels. Professor Quirrell's strange behavior caught Harry's attention. The defense against the dark arts teacher often watched Harry with an intensity that made his scar burn. The pendant turned ice-cold whenever Quirrell was nearby. Danger. Competitor. He seeks what you seek. In April, Harry overheard Quirrell whimpering in an empty classroom, as if being threatened. Days later, Hagrid accidentally revealed he'd told a stranger how to get past Fluffy, the three-headed dog. Everything accelerated after that. Harry deduced that someone, likely Quirrell, was making a move on the stone. The pendant burned against his skin, urging action. Now. Before it's taken. The night Dumbledore left for London, Harry knew it was time. He confided in Ron and Hermione that the stone was in danger, but not his true intentions for it. Together they navigated the challenges protecting it: Fluffy, Devil's Snare, flying keys, a giant chess set, a troll, and Snape's logic puzzle with potions. When only enough potion remained for one person to proceed, Harry made his choice. "I'll go on alone," he told Hermione firmly. "You get Ron to the hospital wing and then fetch Dumbledore." After they left, Harry drank the potion and stepped through the black flames into the final chamber. As he'd suspected, Professor Quirrell stood before the mirror of Erised. "I wondered if I'd be meeting you here, Potter," Quirrell said, his usual stutter gone. What followed shocked Harry to his core. Quirrell unwrapped his turban to reveal a second face on the back of his head, the face of Voldemort, the wizard who had murdered Harry's parents. "Harry Potter," it whispered. "See what I have become. Mere shadow and vapor, forced to share another's body." As Voldemort spoke of his plans to regain power using the stone, Harry's mind raced. This wasn't part of his plan, facing his parents' murderer while trying to secure the first component for their resurrection. The pendant remained cold against his skin. "Careful. He must not know your true purpose." Voldemort forced Harry to stand before the mirror. "Tell me what you see." Harry looked into the mirror and saw himself, smiling. Mirror Harry reached into his pocket and pulled out a blood-red stone, then winked and put it back. As he did, Harry felt something heavy drop into his real pocket. "I see myself shaking hands with Dumbledore," Harry lied. "I've won the House Cup." "He lies," shrieked Voldemort. "Let me speak to him face to face." When Voldemort demanded the stone, Harry tried to run, but Quirrell caught him. The moment their skin touched, Quirrell howled in pain, his flesh blistering where it contacted Harry's. Acting on instinct, Harry pressed his hands to Quirrell's face, causing excruciating pain to both of them until everything went black. Harry awoke in the hospital wing with Dumbledore beside his bed. The headmaster explained how Harry's mother's love had protected him, preventing Quirrell from touching him without suffering terrible pain. "And the stone?" Harry asked, trying to sound merely curious. "Professor Quirrell did not manage to take it from you. I arrived in time to prevent that, although you were doing very well on your own," Dumbledore answered. "The stone has been destroyed." Harry's heart sank, but he kept his expression neutral. "Destroyed? But what about Nicholas Flamel? He and his wife have enough elixir to set their affairs in order, and then yes, they will die." Dumbledore watched Harry carefully. "To one as young as you, I'm sure it seems incredible, but to Nicholas and Perenelle, it's like going to bed after a very, very long day. After all, to the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure." Harry nodded politely, but internally rejected the platitude. Death wasn't an adventure, it was a barrier he intended to overcome. When Dumbledore left, Harry reached into his pajama pocket where he'd felt a small weight. His fingers closed around a tiny fragment of the Philosopher's Stone, a splinter that had broken off during his struggle with Quirrell. The pendant warmed approvingly. "The first component. Keep it hidden." Harry carefully wrapped the fragment in a handkerchief and concealed it in a secret pocket he'd sewn into his robes. One piece secured, two more to find. At the end of year feast, Dumbledore awarded last-minute points to Gryffindor, allowing them to win the House Cup. Harry smiled and cheered with his housemates, playing the role of the triumphant hero while his mind remained focused on his true quest. As the Hogwarts Express carried them back to London, Hermione asked, "You'll write this summer, won't you?" "Of course," Harry replied, genuinely smiling. Despite his secret agenda, he'd grown fond of Ron and Hermione. Their friendship provided both cover and unexpected comfort. "Hope you have a good summer," said Ron. "And don't let those muggles get you down." "They won't," Harry said with quiet confidence. "I've got too much to look forward to." His hand drifted to the hidden pocket containing the stone fragment. The pendant pulsed warmly against his chest. "Progress," the whisper came. "The chamber awaits you next." Harry's eyes narrowed slightly. The chamber? What chamber? But the pendant had gone cold, offering no further guidance. As the train pulled into King's Cross Station, Harry took a deep breath. 1 year down, one component secured. Whatever this chamber was, it contained the next piece of the puzzle, the next step toward bringing his parents back. "See you next term," he told his friends with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. The summer would be spent studying, planning, preparing for whatever challenges lay ahead. The ritual was underway. Harry's second year at Hogwarts began with whispers and stares. A house elf named Dobby had tried to prevent him from returning to school, warning of terrible danger. Then Harry and Ron had crashed a flying car into the Whomping Willow after being unable to access platform 9 3/4. The pendant had remained frustratingly silent about Dobby's warnings, but it heated dramatically when Harry heard a chilling voice in the walls during detention. Come to me, let me rip you, let me tear you, let me kill you." No one else heard it. Even more disturbing was Professor Lockhart, their incompetent new defense teacher who seemed determined to mentor Harry. The pendant turned ice-cold whenever Lockhart touched Harry's shoulder or pulled him into photographs. Fraud. Useless. Avoid. On Halloween, everything changed. Harry attended nearly headless Nick's death day party with Ron and Hermione, then heard the murderous voice again. Following it led them to a horrifying scene, Mrs. Norris, the caretaker's cat, hanging stiff and frozen beside a blood-red message, "The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Enemies of the air, beware." The pendant burned against Harry's skin. The chamber. It begins. That night, Harry consulted his notebook, adding this new information. Chamber of Secrets, never mentioned in the ritual instructions before. He touched the pendant. What's in this chamber? Is it the next component? Creature of immortality. Venom. Powerful catalyst. The pieces clicked together in Harry's mind. The whispering voice, the petrified cat, the chamber. A serpent of some kind. Something that can petrify. Research became Harry's obsession. He spent every free moment in the library, reading about magical creatures while pretending to care about Quidditch in classes. Hermione proved invaluable again, her own curiosity about the chamber driving their investigations. As more students were petrified, fear gripped the school. Harry discovered he could speak Parseltongue when he accidentally communicated with a snake during dueling club. Students began whispering that Harry himself might be the heir of Slytherin. The pendant remained neutral on this development. Useful skill. Neither confirm nor deny suspicions. Harry found Tom Riddle's diary among Moaning Myrtle's flooded belongings. The pendant turned ice-cold the moment he touched it. Dangerous. Similar to me, but twisted. Learn from it, then destroy. Through the diary, Harry witnessed Riddle's memory of accusing Hagrid of opening the chamber 50 years ago. The pendant pulsed with disagreement. Half-truth. The girl who died, ask about her. This led Harry to Moaning Myrtle herself, who revealed she was killed in the second-floor bathroom. Before Harry could investigate further, Hermione was petrified, a crumpled page about basilisks clutched in her hand. Everything accelerated after that. When Ginny Weasley was taken into the chamber and another message appeared, "Her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever," Harry knew he had to act. With Ron, he forced Lockhart to accompany them to Myrtle's bathroom. Harry spoke Parseltongue to open the entrance, and they slid down into the depths beneath the school. When Lockhart attempted to obliviate them and escape, his backfiring spell caused a cave-in, separating Harry from Ron and the now amnesiac professor. "Go back and try to shift some of this rock," Harry called to Ron. "I'll go on and find Ginny." Alone, Harry proceeded through a serpent-engraved door into the chamber itself, a long, dimly lit hall with towering stone pillars entwined with carved serpents. At the far end stood an enormous statue of Salazar Slytherin, and at its feet lay Ginny, pale and still. Beside her stood the ghostly form of Tom Riddle. "She won't wake," Riddle said softly. "She's still alive, but only just." What followed was a revelation that shook Harry to his core. Tom Riddle was Lord Voldemort's younger self, preserved in the diary. He had been using Ginny to open the chamber and unleash the basilisk. As Riddle called forth the monstrous serpent, Harry's pendant burned with urgent heat. "The venom. You need its venom. Do not look in its eyes." Harry ran, keeping his eyes down, Fawkes the Phoenix appearing with the sorting hat. When the hat produced the sword of Gryffindor, Harry faced the basilisk with newfound determination. The battle was brutal and desperate. The basilisk lunged, Harry thrust the sword upward, and a fang sank deep into his arm even as the sword pierced through the serpent's mouth into its brain. Searing pain spread from the wound, basilisk venom coursing through Harry's veins. As he staggered back toward Ginny, the pendant pulsed with urgent instructions. "The fang. Take it. The diary. Destroy it." Despite his fading vision, Harry wrenched the fang from his arm and plunged it into the diary. Riddle screamed and vanished in a burst of light. Fawkes landed beside Harry, tears falling onto his wound, healing it completely. When the crisis ended, Ginny revived, the basilisk dead, everyone safely returned to the surface. Harry managed one crucial, unseen action. He secreted away a vial of basilisk blood and a second fang, carefully wrapped and hidden in his robes. The pendant thrummed with satisfaction. The second component. Blood and venom of immortality's nemesis. In Dumbledore's office, Harry recounted most of what happened, omitting his collection of basilisk parts. The headmaster explained how Voldemort had transferred some of his powers to Harry the night he gave him his scar, including Parseltongue. So the Sorting Hat was right, Harry said quietly. I do have qualities Salazar Slytherin prized. It is our choices, Harry, that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities, Dumbledore replied, his piercing blue eyes studying Harry carefully. For a moment, Harry felt transparent before that gaze, as if Dumbledore could see the secret components hidden in his robes, the forbidden ritual planned in his mind. He quickly reinforced his innocent expression. On the train ride home, Harry reflected on his progress. 2 components secured, the Philosopher's Stone fragment and basilisk parts. The pendant had mentioned a 3rd component, but remained silent on its nature. You two are the best friends anyone could have, Harry told Ron and Hermione sincerely. Despite his secret mission, his affection for them was genuine, an unexpected development that sometimes troubled him. As they approached London, Harry touched the pendant beneath his shirt. What next? What's the 3rd component? Patience, came the whisper. Your 3rd year brings new challenges. The betrayer returns. The guardian watches. The truth of that night waits to be uncovered. Harry frowned. What betrayer? What truth? But the pendant went cold, offering no further guidance. King's Cross Station came into view. Harry gathered his things, carefully checking that his secret components remained secure. 2 years down, 1 more component to find. Then, perhaps, the ritual could begin. His parents were waiting. Chapter 3, The Price of Return. The summer before Harry's 3rd year dragged by with agonizing slowness. The Dursleys were as horrible as ever, but their power over Harry had diminished to almost nothing. They didn't know he kept a basilisk fang under the loose floorboard in his room. They had no idea about the fragment of the Philosopher's Stone wrapped in dragonhide cloth, nestled in a small carved box. And they certainly couldn't feel the pendant that hung always around his neck, occasionally warming with guidance or whispered instructions. Boy! Get down here and clean up Dudley's mess. Uncle Vernon bellowed from downstairs. Harry sighed and tucked his notebook beneath his pillow. The ritual preparations were coming along well, but he still needed that 3rd component, whatever it was. The pendant had been frustratingly vague. Coming, Uncle Vernon, Harry called back, a plan already forming. He'd been practicing wandless magic all summer, careful to avoid detection by the Ministry. Nothing flashy, just small manipulations of objects, temporary invisibility, and minor suggestion spells that made the Dursleys suddenly remember urgent errands whenever they became too bothersome. When he reached the bottom of the stairs, he found Dudley had knocked over an entire shelf of Aunt Petunia's collectible plates. His cousin stood there with a baseball bat, looking smug. Clean it up, freak, Dudley sneered. Harry met his cousin's eyes directly. Why don't you tell them what really happened? A tiny pulse of magic accompanied his words as Harry subtly twisted his fingers by his side. Dudley's eyes glazed slightly. I broke them, Dudley said, confusion crossing his face. Playing inside when I shouldn't have. Uncle Vernon's face purpled. What? Dudley, is this true? Harry slipped away during the ensuing argument, a cold smile playing at his lips. These small exercises of power kept him sharp, ready for the challenges ahead. The manipulative magic felt natural now, almost easy. That night, as Harry reviewed his notes by wandlight, the pendant suddenly burned hot against his skin. The betrayer has escaped. The path to the 3rd component opens. What betrayer? Harry whispered, but the pendant went cold. He got his answer the next morning when Uncle Vernon switched on the television news. Authorities continue the nationwide manhunt for escaped prisoner Sirius Black, who is armed and extremely dangerous. Harry froze, sensing the connection immediately. The pendant warmed in confirmation. Sirius Black. Connected to your parents' death. Secrets he holds. Things accelerated after Harry accidentally inflated Aunt Marge and fled Privet Drive. The Minister of Magic himself met Harry at the Leaky Cauldron, strangely unconcerned about Harry's underage magic. The pendant turned ice-cold during their conversation. He fears Black is hunting you. Use this. In Diagon Alley, Harry spent his days gathering information, collecting certain rare ingredients from the apothecary, and studying advanced magical texts. He carefully avoided his friends, making excuses when they invited him out. The ritual was too close to completion, he couldn't afford distractions. On the Hogwarts Express, Harry was forced into a compartment containing his friends and a sleeping man introduced by a luggage tag as Professor R.J. Lupin. "We were worried when you didn't meet us in Diagon Alley," Hermione said reproachfully. "Sorry," Harry replied, not meeting her eyes. "I was busy with summer homework." Ron snorted. "Since when do you care about homework?" Before Harry could answer, the train screeched to a halt. The lights went out, and freezing cold crept through the compartment. Harry felt the pendant turn to ice against his skin as a towering, hooded figure appeared in the doorway, a Dementor. Soul-crushing despair washed over Harry. Distantly, he heard a woman screaming, his mother, he realized, in her final moments. As darkness closed in, Harry glimpsed something else, the mirror from his childhood, but different now, its surface swirling with shadows, something trying to emerge. He woke to Professor Lupin offering him chocolate, explaining about Dementors and their effects. "Why did I pass out?" Harry asked, embarrassed. "No one else did. The Dementors feed on happy memories, leaving only your worst experiences," Lupin explained. "Those with particularly traumatic pasts suffer more severely." That night in his dormitory, Harry touched the pendant. What was that I saw? The mirror changing. Dementors perceive true natures. Dangerous to our plans. Avoid them. Harry nodded, adding this to his mental calculations. Whatever the mirror truly was, Dementors could reveal it, which meant they were a threat to his mission. School began with new complications. Hagrid taught care of magical creatures, Trelawney predicted Harry's death in divination, and Lupin quickly proved to be their most competent defense teacher yet. The pendant remained neutral toward Lupin, neither warning nor approving. When Harry's boggart transformed into a Dementor during Lupin's class, the professor's interest in Harry intensified. He offered to teach Harry the Patronus charm as protection. Accept. Useful skill. Builds trust. These private lessons became valuable for multiple reasons. Harry learned to combat Dementors, gained access to Lupin's extensive knowledge, and established a connection with someone who, he gradually realized, had known his parents. "You knew them well?" Harry asked during one session, feigning casual interest. "Your father was one of my best friends," Lupin said softly. "And your mother was extraordinarily kind to me when others weren't." Harry absorbed this information hungrily. "And Sirius Black? Was he your friend too?" Lupin stiffened visibly. "We thought he was. Before he betrayed them." The pendant heated urgently. "Press him. More to this story. How did he betray them, exactly?" Harry asked. "That's enough for tonight, Harry," Lupin said firmly. "We should focus on your Patronus." Harry didn't push, but his suspicions grew. There was more to the story of his parents' deaths than he'd been told. Meanwhile, Sirius Black had reportedly broken into Hogwarts, slashing the fat lady's portrait in an attempt to enter Gryffindor Tower. Security tightened, but Harry grew increasingly certain that Black wasn't after him, at least not to kill him. The pendant neither confirmed nor denied this theory, which Harry found unusual. His relationships with Ron and Hermione deteriorated as Harry withdrew further into his research. When Hermione's cat apparently ate Ron's rat Scabbers, Harry barely noticed their bitter argument. He had made a breakthrough in identifying the ritual's final component. It requires a significant magical sacrifice, he whispered to the pendant one night. Something imbued with protective magic. Like what my mother did for me. Yes. Blood protection. Powerful enchantment. Rare. Harry frowned. Where would I find such a thing? The pendant remained cold. The answer came from an unexpected source. During a Hogsmeade visit Harry attended under his invisibility cloak, he overheard Professor McGonagall and Cornelius Fudge discussing Sirius Black with Madame Rosmerta. Few people know that the Potters knew you-know-who was hunting them. Dumbledore advised them to go into hiding under the Fidelius charm, McGonagall explained. And Black was their secret keeper? Rosmerta asked. Naturally, said Professor McGonagall. But then, barely a week after the charm was performed, Black betrayed them to you-know-who. Harry listened, frozen in place, as they explained how Black had also murdered Peter Pettigrew and 12 Muggles. But something felt wrong about the story. The pendant neither warmed nor cooled, offering no guidance. That night, Harry consulted his notes again. The Fidelius charm, a complex piece of soul magic involving secrets, trust, and protection. Could this be connected to the third component? His investigation was interrupted when Harry received a firebolt broomstick for Christmas with no card. When Hermione reported it to McGonagall, fearing it might be from Sirius Black, Harry's patience with her snapped completely. You had no right, he snarled. That broom could have been important. Important for what, Harry? Hermione asked, her voice small. You've been different this year. Distant. Secretive. Harry turned away. You wouldn't understand. Try me, she pleaded. For a brief moment, Harry considered telling her everything, the mirror, the ritual, his parents waiting to return. The pendant turned ice-cold against his skin, and the impulse passed. Just leave me alone, he said coldly. The distance between them grew. Harry spent more time alone, practicing advanced magic in abandoned classrooms, reviewing the ritual preparations, and researching protective enchantments. Ron still sat with him at meals, but conversation was strained. Hermione stopped trying altogether. After Harry's firebolt was finally returned, cleared of curses, the Quidditch match against Ravenclaw brought another crisis. Dementors appeared on the field, or what Harry thought were Dementors. His powerful Patronus scattered them, but they turned out to be Malfoy and his cronies in disguise. The truly significant event happened afterward. Ron's bed curtains were slashed by Sirius Black while everyone was at the match. The intruder fled when Ron woke screaming, but left behind a crucial clue: he had targeted Ron's bed, not Harry's. The pendant warmed urgently when Harry considered this. The rat. Not what it seems. Scabbers? Harry whispered incredulously. What does Ron's rat have to do with anything? The pendant merely pulsed once, offering no further explanation. Events accelerated as the year progressed. Buckbeak the Hippogriff was sentenced to execution for attacking Malfoy. Hermione slapped Malfoy when he mocked Hagrid, then mysteriously began appearing in multiple classes scheduled for the same time. The strain of her impossible schedule combined with Harry's coldness pushed her to a breaking point. I don't know what happened to you, Harry, she said during a rare moment when they were alone in the common room. You used to care about people. Now all you care about are your secret projects and whatever you're always writing in that notebook. Harry felt a pang of genuine regret, quickly suppressed. I have my reasons, Hermione. Whatever they are, they're changing you, she said sadly. And not for the better. On the evening of Buckbeak's scheduled execution, Ron and Hermione finally reconciled. To Harry's surprise, they insisted he join them to visit Hagrid for support. You're coming, Harry, Ron said firmly. You've been a right git lately, but Hagrid needs all of us. The pendant remained neutral. Harry reluctantly agreed, sensing an important turning point approaching. At Hagrid's hut, they discovered Scabbers alive and hiding in a milk jug. As they left to avoid being caught after hours, a large black dog attacked Ron, dragging him and Scabbers into a tunnel beneath the Whomping Willow. The pendant burned hot against Harry's skin. Follow. The truth awaits. Harry and Hermione pursued them through the tunnel, emerging in the Shrieking Shack where they found Ron with a broken leg, and Sirius Black. What followed was a revelation that shattered Harry's understanding of his parents' deaths. Lupin arrived and embraced Black as a friend. They revealed that Scabbers was actually Peter Pettigrew, an animagus who had betrayed the Potters and framed Black. When forced to transform, the rat became a sniveling, terrified man. Harry. Harry. You look just like your father. Pettigrew whined. Don't talk about my father. Harry shouted, rage building inside him. The pendant burned with matching fury. He is the betrayer. He holds the key. When Snape appeared and was disarmed by Harry, Black and Lupin prepared to kill Pettigrew. Harry stopped them. My dad wouldn't have wanted his best friends to become killers, he said, though his own hands itched to strangle the traitor. The pendant cooled slightly, approving of his restraint. Alive. We need him alive. As they levitated Snape's unconscious body and bound Pettigrew, making their way back through the tunnel, Harry found himself walking beside Black. I'm your godfather, you know, Black said hesitantly. I know, Harry replied. Hagrid mentioned it once. Your parents made me your guardian, if anything happened to them. Harry's heart raced. Was this leading where he thought? I'll understand if you want to stay with your aunt and uncle, Black continued. But if you wanted a different home, come and live with you, Harry said, voice carefully neutral though excitement surged through him. A wizard guardian would make his ritual preparations infinitely easier. The pendant, however, turned unexpectedly cold. Careful. Complication. His presence changes things. Before Harry could process this warning, disaster struck. They emerged from the tunnel into full moonlight. Lupin, who had forgotten to take his wolfsbane potion, began transforming into a werewolf. In the chaos that followed, Pettigrew escaped, and Dementors descended upon them by the lake. Harry attempted to cast his Patronus to save himself and Black, but the swarm of Dementors overwhelmed him. As consciousness faded, he saw the same vision as before, the mirror, its surface writhing with shadows, something trying to break free. He woke in the hospital wing with Hermione frantically explaining that Black had been captured and was scheduled for the Dementor's kiss. When Dumbledore entered and cryptically suggested they could save 2 innocent lives with Hermione's special device, the pendant burned with sudden understanding. Time Turner. Perfect for the ritual. Harry followed Dumbledore's implicit instructions, joining Hermione as she revealed her Time Turner and took them 3 hours into the past. They saved Buckbeak first, then waited for events to unfold as they had experienced them. When their past selves were overwhelmed by Dementors, Harry stepped forward to cast a Patronus, but hesitated. Harry, what are you waiting for? Hermione whispered urgently. The pendant pulsed with unexpected advice, let them closer. See what they reveal. As the Dementors closed in, Harry glimpsed the mirror vision again, clearer now, something ancient and hungry trying to claw its way through, using his parents' images as bait. The revelation shook him deeply, but he pushed it aside, casting his Patronus with tremendous power. The silver stag charged the Dementors, driving them away. The pendant cooled, as if disappointed Harry hadn't let the vision develop further. They rescued Black, sending him away on Buckbeak. When they returned to their original timeline, Dumbledore's knowing smile suggested he understood more than he revealed. I suspect, Harry, that you've discovered some interesting things this year, the headmaster said as Harry prepared to leave the hospital wing. Harry maintained a neutral expression. Sir. About your parents. About sacrifice. About what truly happened that night in Godric's Hollow. Dumbledore's piercing blue eyes seemed to see right through him. Be careful with such knowledge. The deepest magic is often the most dangerous. The pendant turned ice cold, urging Harry to end the conversation. He nodded vaguely and retreated. As the school year ended, Harry found himself at a crossroads. The third component had revealed itself during their time-traveling adventure, the protective magic of self-sacrifice, exemplified by both his mother's death and Sirius risking everything to protect Harry. The time turner itself would be useful for the complex timing of the ritual. But the Dementor visions troubled him. What had he glimpsed trying to emerge from the mirror? Was it truly his parents waiting to return, or something else? On the train ride home, Harry finally broke his silence with Ron and Hermione. "I'm sorry I've been awful this year," he said quietly. "There's something I've been working on. Something important." "What is it, mate?" Ron asked, clearly relieved that Harry was talking again. The pendant warned against disclosure, but Harry compromised. "It's about my parents. I've discovered a way to learn more about them." It wasn't entirely a lie. "Oh, Harry," Hermione said softly. "That's understandable. But you can tell us anything, right? We want to help." Harry nodded, guilt washing over him. These were his friends, and he'd been using them, manipulating them, keeping them at arm's length while he pursued his obsession. "I know," he said. "And I promise, next year will be different." The pendant vibrated against his chest, neither approving nor disapproving of this half-truth. Summer at the Dursleys passed in a blur of preparation. Harry had all three components now, the Philosopher's Stone fragment, the basilisk blood and venom, and a clear understanding of the protective magic needed. The ritual could theoretically be performed. What he lacked was a suitable location and the necessary time. Hogwarts would provide both, with its ancient magical foundations and hidden rooms. "Fourth year," Harry whispered to the pendant one night. "It ends in fourth year." "Yes. The time approaches. But a test comes first." Harry didn't understand this warning until he attended the Quidditch World Cup with the Weasleys. After the match, Death Eaters attacked the campsite, and the dark mark appeared in the sky. The pendant burned with recognition. Harbinger. He stirs. Competitors emerge. Back at Hogwarts, the announcement of the Triwizard Tournament seemed inconsequential to Harry compared to his plans. But when his name emerged from the Goblet of Fire, forcing him to compete as a fourth champion, Harry recognized the test the pendant had warned about. Ron abandoned him immediately, convinced Harry had entered himself for glory. Hermione stood by him, but her constant fretting and research into the tournament rules distracted her from noticing Harry's continued secret activities. The first task, dragons, nearly derailed everything. Harry spent so much time preparing to face his Hungarian horntail that the ritual preparation stalled. After successfully retrieving the golden egg, Harry reconciled with Ron, who finally believed he hadn't entered himself. The pendant vibrated with irritation. Distractions. Focus on what matters. But Harry found himself caring about these friendships despite his obsession. The mirror and the pendant had been his only companions for so many years. Now he had people who genuinely cared about him, not just his parents waiting beyond death's veil. This internal conflict intensified with the second task. When Harry learned he needed to rescue Ron from the Mere People, genuine fear for his friend gripped him. He ended up saving not just Ron but Gabrielle Delacour as well, sacrificing his lead in the tournament. The pendant turned ice-cold with disapproval. Unnecessary heroics. The ritual requires selfishness. Harry ignored it, for the first time actively rejecting its guidance. That night, alone in his dormitory, he confronted the pendant directly. "What are you, really?" he demanded. "Every time I care about someone else, you disapprove. Every time I put the ritual above everything, you're pleased. What do you want?" The pendant heated painfully against his skin. "I want what you want. Your parents returned to you. But at what cost?" Harry pressed. I've been pushing everyone away for years because of this obsession. What would my parents think of that? The pendant went cold, offering no answer. As the third task approached, Harry accelerated his ritual preparations. He had identified the perfect location, the Chamber of Secrets, its ancient magic ideal for such powerful work. Using Parseltongue, he had revisited the chamber multiple times, preparing a ritual circle with the symbols shown to him so many years ago. Mad-Eye Moody's interest in Harry grew increasingly suspicious. The pendant warned against trusting him, but Harry maintained a careful facade, suspecting Moody might inadvertently provide useful information. The night before the third task, Harry made his final preparations. He smuggled the ritual components to the chamber, setting everything in place. According to his calculations, the resurrection would require approximately 3 hours of uninterrupted ritual work. Tomorrow, he whispered to the pendant. After the task, I'll slip away during the celebrations and complete it. The pendant pulsed with excitement. Yes. Finally. After all these years. The third task proved more dangerous than expected. The maze contained obstacles both magical and monstrous, but Harry navigated them with single-minded determination. When he encountered a boggart, it no longer took the form of a Dementor. Instead, it showed his parents emerging from the ritual circle, but wrong somehow, twisted and malevolent. The pendant turned painfully hot. Ignore it. Fears lie. Harry pressed on, eventually finding himself racing Cedric Diggory to the Triwizard Cup. When they decided to take it together, the pendant vibrated with unexpected approval. Perfect. The sacrifice presents itself. Harry barely had time to process this disturbing statement before the cup transported them to a graveyard. Pettigrew appeared, carrying a small, deformed creature. Kill the spare, a high, cold voice commanded. Avada Kedavra. Green light flashed, and Cedric fell dead beside Harry. Horror washed over him as he realized what the pendant had meant. Cedric was the sacrifice it had anticipated. What followed was nightmare made real. Harry was bound to Tom Riddle Sr.'s tombstone, his blood forcibly taken for a ritual that restored Voldemort to a body. The pendant remained cold throughout, neither helping nor hindering as Harry dueled Voldemort and escaped with Cedric's body via the portkey. Back at Hogwarts, chaos erupted. Moody was revealed to be Barty Crouch Jr. in disguise, the real Moody rescued from a magical trunk. Fudge refused to believe Voldemort had returned, and Dumbledore began mobilizing against the coming darkness. Through it all, Harry remained strangely detached. His mind kept returning to Voldemort's resurrection ritual, so similar to the one he had prepared, both requiring blood, both promising to restore life. "Are you all right, Harry?" Hermione asked as they sat in the hospital wing. "You seem elsewhere." "I'm fine," Harry replied automatically. "Just tired." But he wasn't fine. For the first time, he questioned the ritual he'd spent 9 years preparing for. If Voldemort used similar dark magic to return, what exactly was Harry attempting to bring back? The pendant sensed his wavering resolve and burned against his skin. Now. Tonight. While the castle is distracted. Complete what we started. Harry slipped away during the confusion, making his way to Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. He opened the chamber entrance and descended into the darkness, his way lit by wand light. The ritual circle waited, precisely as he had prepared it. The Philosopher's Stone fragment at the northern point, basilisk blood and venom in crystal vials at the eastern and western points, and the southern point awaiting the final component, his own blood, freely given in sacrifice, carrying his mother's protective magic. Harry placed the pendant in the center of the circle. For 9 years it had guided him, pushing him toward this moment. Now, as he prepared to complete the ritual, doubt crept in. "I want to see them first," Harry said firmly. "Show me my parents as they truly are now, not as they were in the mirror." The pendant pulsed angrily, but Harry stood his ground. "Show me, or I walk away." Reluctantly, the pendant flared with silver light. Above the ritual circle, two transparent figures formed, James and Lily Potter, but not as Harry had seen them in the mirror. These apparitions looked sad, concerned. "Harry," his mother's spirit said softly. "What are you doing?" "I'm bringing you back," Harry replied, his voice breaking. "I've spent 9 years preparing. Everything's ready." James shook his head. "Son, this isn't right. We've moved on. What you're attempting to bring back, it wouldn't be us." "Not really. But the mirror showed me how. The pendant guided me," Harry protested. "The mirror lies," Lily said gently. "It shows not truth but obsession. And that pendant." She looked at it with clear distaste. "That's not us guiding you, Harry." The pendant flared with rage, its light turning from silver to blood red. "They lie. These are false images sent to confuse you. Complete the ritual now." For the first time, the whisper was audible in the chamber, echoing off the stone walls. Harry stepped back, suddenly afraid. "What are you?" he demanded of the pendant. The red light coalesced, forming a humanoid shape with 2 long limbs and features that shifted continuously. "I am ancient. I am patient. I have waited centuries for a wizard with power and desperation enough to free me." "You used me," Harry whispered, horrified realization dawning. "You showed me my parents to manipulate me." "I showed you what you wanted most desperately to see," the entity countered. "The mirror reveals desire, I merely shaped it to my purpose. And you performed admirably, gathering components no child should have been able to obtain." "Harry," his mother's spirit pleaded, "the ritual doesn't resurrect the dead. It creates a tear between worlds through which this entity can fully enter ours. It's been trapped between realms for millennia. It would use our forms, our memories," James added, "but twisted, corrupted. And the price for its complete freedom would be catastrophic." Harry looked between the spirits of his parents and the raging red form above the pendant. 9 years of obsession, of pushing people away, of risking everything, all for a lie. "You would have worn their faces," he said to the entity, anger building inside him. "Made me think I had them back, while you, what? Destroyed our world. Reshaped it," the entity corrected. "But enough talk. The components are gathered. Your blood is the final key." Tendrils of red energy shot toward Harry, attempting to scratch him, to draw blood for the ritual. Harry ducked, mind racing. He couldn't destroy the entity, it was too powerful. But perhaps. "You're trapped," Harry realized aloud. "Between worlds. You need this ritual to fully cross over." The entity pulsed with frustration. "Clever boy. But too late to matter." "No," Harry said, a new determination filling him. "Not too late." He snatched up the pendant and the philosopher's stone fragment, backing away from the circle. The red energy pursued him, but couldn't extend far beyond the ritual components. "I've studied magical theory for years preparing for this," Harry continued, thinking rapidly. "Rituals can be adapted. Modified." The spirits of his parents floated beside him. "Harry, what are you planning?" his father asked. "A containment," Harry replied grimly. "Not a doorway out, but a prison going in." He began reworking the ritual circle, using his wand to change key symbols. The entity thrashed in rage, its red energy growing more frantic. "Stop. You have no idea what you're doing." "Actually, I do," Harry countered, confidence growing. "You taught me too well." Working feverishly, Harry repurposed the ritual components. The philosopher's stone fragment, symbol of transformation, would now transform not death to life, but freedom to imprisonment. The basilisk blood and venom, creatures of immortality and its nemesis, would create a paradox of eternal containment. The final component remained his blood, but given now not to open a door, but to seal one forever. "You would trap me for eternity?" The entity raged. "After all I've shown you?" All I've taught you. You used me, Harry said coldly. Made me push away everyone who cared about me. Made me obsess over the impossible. No more. He stepped to the edge of the redrawn circle. The spirits of James and Lily Potter stood beside him, their faces proud. We love you, Harry, his mother said softly. We always have. But we're at peace. Your life is ahead of you, son, his father added. Not behind with us. Harry nodded, tears streaming down his face. I know. I understand now. Taking a deep breath, he pricked his finger with his wand and let 3 drops of blood fall onto the circle. With freely given blood, I bind you. With power born of sacrifice, I contain you. With love as my witness, I seal your prison for all time. The ritual flared to life, not with the red light of the entity, but with pure, blinding white. The entity screamed, its form compressing, drawn inexorably back into the pendant. The ritual components, stone fragment, basilisk blood and venom, dissolved into the magic, reinforcing the binding. When the light faded, only the pendant remained in the center of a blackened circle, its silver surface now etched with containment runes. Harry approached carefully and picked it up. It felt cold and inert. Is it over? He asked his parents' spirits. They nodded. It's contained, his father confirmed. Powerfully bound by your magic and intent. We have to go now, Harry, his mother said gently. This moment between worlds can't last. I understand, Harry said, fresh tears falling. I've missed you so much. We know, Lily smiled sadly. But we've always been with you, in your heart. Not in some mirror, not in that pendant. In you. Live, Harry, James urged. Live fully. Love deeply. That's how you honor us. I will, Harry promised. I'll make you proud. You already have, they said in unison as their forms began to fade. We love you. Always. When they vanished completely, Harry stood alone in the chamber, holding the trapped entity. He knew what he had to do. Hours later, deep in the Department of Mysteries where Dumbledore had taken him after hearing his confession, Harry placed the pendant in a specially warded box. You understand the seriousness of what nearly happened? Dumbledore asked gravely. Harry nodded. I was manipulated, but I made the choices. I let obsession rule me for years. Yet in the end, you chose correctly, Dumbledore noted. Few wizards would have had the strength to reject what they most desired when it was within reach. It wasn't really them, Harry said quietly. I understand that now. As the unspeakable sealed the entity away in the deepest vaults, Harry felt a weight lift from his shoulders. 9 years of single-minded purpose, gone, replaced by something both lighter and more meaningful. When he returned to Hogwarts, he sought out Ron and Hermione immediately. They sat by the lake, concern etched on their faces after his unexplained absence. Harry! Where have you been? Hermione exclaimed. We were worried sick. I've got a lot to explain, Harry said, sitting between them. About why I've been so distant. About what I've been hiding for years. And so he told them everything, the mirror at age 5, the pendant's guidance, the components he'd collected, the ritual he'd nearly completed. He explained how the entity had manipulated him, and how he'd finally seen his parents' true spirits. When he finished, Ron let out a long, low whistle. Bloody hell, mate. You went through all that alone? Hermione asked, tears in her eyes. For 9 years. I didn't think anyone would understand, Harry admitted. And the pendant. It wanted me isolated, focused only on the ritual. But we're your friends, Ron said firmly. We would have helped. Or stopped you. Or something. I know that now, Harry replied. And I'm sorry. For everything. They sat in silence for a moment, watching the sunset reflect on the lake. So what now? Hermione finally asked. After spending so long with this one goal. Harry took out his wallet and removed a small photograph Hagrid had given him in first year, his parents holding him as a baby, smiling and waving. Now I learn to remember them properly, he said softly. Not by trying to bring them back, but by carrying them forward. In here. He tapped his chest. As the last light faded from the sky, Harry felt something he hadn't experienced in 9 years, peace. The obsession that had driven him since age 5 had lifted, leaving room for grief, yes, but also for joy, friendship, and possibility. Voldemort was back. Dark times lay ahead. But for the first time since a small, abused boy had gazed into a mysterious mirror, Harry Potter faced the future not as a vessel for forbidden ritual magic, but simply as himself, flawed, healing, and finally free to live. He looked at the photograph once more, his parents' smiling faces filling him with warmth rather than desperate longing. "I'll make you proud," he whispered. "I promise." And somewhere beyond the veil, James and Lily Potter smiled back. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.